Hi, this is K.N.Fitzwater, and you are watching my channel. So I hope you have a happy Halloween. I'm going to be a black cat for this coming Halloween. So I'm doing a makeup test as I run through this video and drinking some coffee. And I also wish you good luck on NaNoWriMo. This will be the first day of NaNoWriMo by the time you see this video. And I know some people are going to try to do 50,000K or 80,000K, but whatever length of the novel is, I hope that you take the time to take care of yourselves, make sure you're not behind on your schoolwork, or having so much stress where you can't function in your day. Just try to enjoy the writing process and the community around coming together in their struggles and creating a story. So I hope you have fun and try not to get too stressed out. So today we're going to talk about tension and raising the stakes. Tension and raising the stakes are part of the ways we as storytellers create juicy drama for our readers and for us. In the pantsing method, we of course are readers as well. And we do get a little bit bored as we continue to write. So if you ever feel like, oh wow, things are boring, I'm just kind of stuck in this rut, I don't want to work on this, you may want to troubleshoot some things on why you're feeling this way. If you already took some breaks and you already took care of yourself and you're not really all too stressed out, it could be that you're not putting some tension or you're putting the stakes where they should be in your story. So what is tension? What is raising the stakes? How do we use them? So first off, let's talk about tension, and then we get into raising the stakes. So tension is about resistance. As a character is hurtling towards their goals, using their motivation to get them towards their goal, they're going to meet some resistance. Resistance could come from themselves. It could be an inner conflict. It could come from their friends and family, people who care about the character but they're afraid they're going to get themselves hurt. It could come from other people or strangers that may have ulterior goals, who may want the same thing but want to use it for different purposes. Or it could be from society. Society may not want them to achieve their goal because they deemed it not right. And that's pretty much about it for tension. So let's go ahead and break it down to how it applies to our action and reaction scenes. So inner character flaw could be that the tension could come from them not thinking things through. And they don't get all the info right. Or maybe that they're a little bit psycho. One of the things that they teach about in creative writing classes is that you have an unreliable narrative where their viewpoints is a little bit skewed. You can't really trust them because they're not exactly the kind of person you want to trust. They have a viewpoint that goes at a tilt, and things could go horribly wrong. It's kind of like Wuthering Heights. You're in a mindset of a villain, actually. The typical villain that would feature in a Jane Austen novel. So their inner flaw could cause resistance. They may fail to see what they need to see in order to obtain their goal, or they fail to become the person that their goal wants them to be. course, in romances, the goal is the girl or the boy. So it can be a person they wish to be part of or obtain, in the case in the Wuthering Heights. And it could be just who they are as a person just could not fit the bill, and they just can't change. And when they do change, they become more of a fallen hero. So you could have that as part of your story. Another way to have tension is that people who care about the character tries to interfere for their sake. For instance, we have Frodo, Sam, and Gollum trying to go into Mordor, and they're using Gollum as a guide. But as Frodo becomes succumb to the ring's wishes and desires, Frodo has a sense that he may become like Gollum. And so in helping Gollum, he is trying to help himself. That's kind of a personal subplot, besides the ultimate goal, which is taking care of the ring. So Sam is Frodo's best friend. He doesn't like Frodo turning or succumbing to the ring, and if he cannot carry the ring for Frodo, he wants to carry Frodo, essentially. And part of the caring is trying to let him know, hey, stop being like Gollum, aren't you listening to yourself? Or, hey, we should not be trusting this dude. Let him loose and we'll find him on our own. Or find the way into Mordor on our own. Let's get rid of this dude. All that seems to go against the character's goal, which is to use Gollum as a guide to get the ring into the volcano, and to interfere with Frodo's desire in trying to save Gollum and turn him back from the abyss. So even though Sam is Frodo's best friend, he is interfering with Frodo's goals and his motivations. So there's tension, there's resistance there. And you also have someone who has an ulterior motive, just like Gollum, who wants the same thing, but they had to deal with the main character. So the first time we see Gollum, he tried to attack Frodo and Sam and tried to steal the ring for himself. That didn't work out for Gollum. So he thought, okay, I'm going to lead them into Mordor, just as they said, the carrier of the precious. And eventually they began to trust the master of the precious, in a way. And when that trust is broken, now they want to just kill off Frodo and just take the ring from their dead corpse. So they work along with the main character, but it's very insidious. They turned Frodo against Sam and misled them into a dangerous path, just so they could take the ring back for themselves. So as you're building up tension, do think about what the villain is doing, and the interactions between the character and the villain is going to create some tension, and it's going to create friction. So if you want to make sure you have the right villain, you have to look at how they mirror against each other and how they come at opposite ends against each other, while they're going for the same ultimate goal. Now the next step is society or nature. Nature is pretty easy. The character is dealing with resistance through an ecosystem. It could be the wildlife they had to deal with. It could be the weather. It could be the extreme conditions of the environment, such as it could be underwater, it could be space. This is a very classical thing called man versus nature, where they have to deal with the obstacles of the natural forces, and based on the characters' survival instincts and choices that they make, are they going to make it? So that is something you can consider. There's nothing wrong in throwing in weather. They said that, oh, don't use weather in the very beginning of your novel, or nature. That came from the whole "it's a dark and stormy night." That whole opening. Everyone says, please stop that. You're not this amazing author who did this at the first time. So that's why they said don't open with weather, don't open with rain. That was it. So you can use other things in your novel, or in your story that creates tension using nature. The Lord of the Rings were able to do it with the snowy capped mountains. You have the Revenant dealing with the woodlands and the creek. You also have the outer space, like the Martian, dealing with the climates of Mars. So you have a lot to go with. It may require a little bit of research, but so long the character or the reader has a little bit of the suspense of disbelief, they're willing to go along with the ride so long, they're hooked with the character and they're wishing for them to survive and make it. Another part is the nature of men, nature of society overall. You could deal with discrimination, you could deal with crime and law, just like Law and Order or the Guardians of the Galaxy. You could deal with governmental ruling, dealing with countries and kingdoms, such as the Game of Thrones. Or it could be simply misunderstandings because two cultures collide and they have to deal with each other. This could be the whole alien introduction event, where the alien comes in dealing with the humans for the first time, or the humans dealing with the aliens for the first time, and whether they assimilate their culture or not is really up to you. So you have different levels of tension that you could throw into your story if you felt like, oh, things are getting into a rut and things are boring. Using our character action and reactions example of going to the coffee to discuss things with a friend, we could say that the main character is an alien from outer space, and they have immigrated to the Earth to live there and to have a normal life, and they fell in love with a human being, and their best friend is a human. So their friend says, okay, let's go ahead and have some coffee and talk about this. Talk about why you ran out of my birthday party and this crush, which I did not know. So, dealing with personal flaw. It could be that they're allergic to whatever drink that they suggested. They could be allergic to coffee itself. That could be a thing. That could be a tension point, where they're trying to fit in so much that they're willing to risk themselves dealing with something they're allergic with, just so they could try to blend in. That could be a thing. That could be something you could throw in there. Or it could be that when they go to the coffee shop, their friend knows that their love interest is engaged and they don't want them to feel disappointed, so they tell them the bad news. Just so they could help their friend move on to find a better person. this could be it. This could be a bit of tension that you could have, or it could be that they are not happy at all, that they left in the middle of the birthday party and caused a big huge ruckus. Maybe they really were trying to show their friends, hey, my alien friend is not that bad, and then they up and left, yeah, it made them look like a liar. Or it could be that they are the person who is engaged with a romantic interest. And this is kind of very disquieting that their best friend had a crush on someone who they're engaged with. But they did not come out and say, oh, I'm engaged with this person. They will just simply say they're engaged to someone else and just leave it hang. So now there's some tension. You may reveal that this best friend is married to this character later on in the story, but you could see how you as an author start suggesting behavioral movements or actions or the words that they say, even though in the back of your mind this is a tension point and things are very awkward. It's possible the main character may not pick up on these things, and you have a plot twist later on in your story. So you could have that. Not all villains are actually villains. Some people are just wanting the same thing, and they just happen to be in cross purposes with other people. Or we're dealing with nature. What if it is raining and the character has to deal with the storm going into the cafe, and let's say rain is somehow a little bit worse for her alien kind than for the human species. What if they just swell up and because of the rain? Or, they have turned a different color. So now, it's really obvious that they are alien. They have to deal with this. So you could think of it that way. How they deal with the natural consequences of the world because they're a unique species. Or, being a little bit more realistic with society, what if it's a humans-only cafe and their best friend wasn't thinking? And it let us slip that, oh, this manager is a jerk and I forgot that this is a humans cafe. And this is their favorite place. And now the alien character, the main character, has to decide, do I go in and create a scene, or do I call my friend to go out to a different place? What do I do here? So that could be that. So you've got some pointers now how to add tension into your story. If you want to come up with some good solutions, the best question to ask yourself is, what could go wrong here? That's the most fun way to go. What could go wrong? This will help create a sense of tension and help give you some ideas. What could go hilariously wrong or horribly wrong depending on how your story is. So how is raising the stakes different from tension? Let's go ahead and get into that. Raising the stakes is about risk. What happens when someone or something fails? What are the consequences of that failure? How bad is it going to be when things don't follow through? That's raising the stakes. Raising the stakes, if you want to use a physics analogy, is a comparison to someone sitting on the bench compared to someone being on top of a roof. The potential of injury if both of them fall to the ground is going to be drastically different from someone being on the bench to someone being on the roof. How we're going to get the character from the bench all the way up to the roof is their goal and their motivation. For instance, it could be that there's a baby on the roof and they're a construction worker on their lunch break. They're not supposed to go back into the building during their lunch break, which is tension between them and the larger group of society, which is their company. And but they're the only one experienced to deal with that situation because it is a building under construction. So you have someone who is qualified, which is the whole expertise of your main character, to do something that is right, which is the baby on the roof. They had to save a baby on the roof. And but if they do this, there's two risks. They could risk losing their job because they're going back to work on their break, or that they could risk injury, if not for themselves, for the baby. What are the key things to keep in mind as we are building our groundwork, working our way up? What are some of the things we have to keep in mind when we are trying to raise the stakes? You make it personal. How is this going to affect the main character if they fail to do the thing that they do? Taking our example with the construction worker on a lunch break, it could be that it is his baby. Or it could be someone who he is interested in. It could be their kid. And they're their single parent. And it could be their kid that's in danger. So you have that. You have a personal stake. If they lose, if they fail to make it, if they don't follow through, they could lose, their romantic interest, or they could lose their own child. So that is the risk that is very personal for the character. You don't have to worry about whether the reader is going to take an investment in this goal. If the reader can relate with the character and roots for this character, they're going to be invested in them achieving their goal, and they're going to bite their nails that they're taking such a huge risk doing this. So you make it personal. You can make it personal if not just them, but those around them. For instance, this is their love interest. It could be their kid. If they don't have their kid survive, how would they feel? They will be in grief. They will be upset. Society tends to be upset when something really innocent is taken away in such a horrific accident. So that could be that. They feel like there's one less good thing in life, and things are just a little bit more depressing now. Or it could be that the co-workers feel bad that their construction site created such injury to the kid if things had failed through. And they would feel awful as they continue their construction site. So you have that risk factor with co-workers and their friends and their love interest. The situation is tied to them in a way that everyone is going to feel bad if this, is not completed. Another thing may not be a personal stake. It may not be the people who they are associated with. It may not be a risk for them, but it could be a value that's at stake or a moral that's at stake. If they don't save the child, it goes against their humanity and their interest as a human being for being a moral and upright person. Going away from the construction example, we could go into Frodo and Gollum. Frodo doesn't want to lose his sense of humanity. He doesn't want to become Gollum. So if he failed to get rid of this ring, he is doomed forever. So it's a mixture of a personal risk, and it's also a moral risk. Frodo wants to be a good person. And Frodo wants to stay good. So you make the stake personal. You make it where it's personal for the character, for the people around them, and have it where it's a value that's at stake. Or if their value is not altruistic, it could be a reputation that's at stake. It could be a financial risk. It could be a job risk, etc. So there are other things that you can do to make it risky for the character. And make the consequences real. That's the next step in raising the stakes. Show that failure can happen and what happens when people fail. Let's say someone is trying to save the baby, and this is how the construction worker is alerted to the situation. Maybe someone had tried to take the baby down in a safe manner, but they fell off and they fell to their death. That could be a real consequence and a real example of this could happen to you. So you can do that. You could show that with minor characters or the people they care about, how much of a risk it can be. It could be a huge bodily harm or injury that could happen to the main character. It could also be reputation. Like, for instance, you may have someone who is secretly a witch, and they had saw or witnessed a witch trial and a burning. You had showcased not only how the society is very discriminatory, where there is that tension, but you also showcase the consequences of being a witch, and you showcase the failure of concealing themselves. No different than being a criminal. If a character is a criminal, what are the consequences for the crime, and what are the punishments? You may not showcase it, but you could have other characters say, look, if you do this, you're in jail for so many years. Or if you do this, I will never see you again. So you make that sense of, hey, you know, let's stop and think here. This is crazy. So you make it real. You don't let them get away with everything. Do showcase failure. Do showcase mistakes being made. If they do follow through their actions and they do fail and things go badly for them, showcase the bad. Don't pull back. Don't be afraid. That's a whole point of telling a story. Showcasing all the good and bad parts. That's why so many people like reading The Handmaid's Tale, even though it's so bad and so atrocious that the character has to deal with this. Everyone has a sense that this could happen in society, and everyone knows that the real consequences in the story are pretty real. They are rooting for this character to have a better life and get out of that situation. So those are the two things that you can do as you raise the stakes. You make it personal, and you showcase the failures of what could happen. Another thing you can do, which is a little bit amorphous, is the whole we have to save the world type of bit. That's really difficult. It really requires setting up the beginning where everyone cares not only for the character but the society that they have to protect. they did a really good job in The Lord of the Rings where they're showcasing how pastoral the Hobbiton is. And when Galadriel showcased the burning of the Shire to Frodo, that is the risk if they decide, you know, oh, we're not going to do this whole ring expedition, or they fail entirely. The hobbits could suffer greatly, even though they had done nothing to deserve, you know, what had happened. So you have the reader care about society of Hobbiton, and they're able to care about Hobbiton because of Frodo. Even though Frodo kind of doesn't care about Hobbiton, he wanted to go on this adventure and wants to get away from it all because, you know, it's a little boring. His thoughts does turn towards Hobbiton and like, I miss the Shire. I miss laying in the grass naked in the dark. You know, I miss the taste of strawberries. You know, I miss the simple life. So in order for that to occur, you have to have a really good beginning, setting up where the reader cares about this society or this group of people, and emphasize, you know, and relate to the citizens in that culture. And if not in the very beginning, at least in the beginning of the second act, where the character goes into this unknown territory, but it's very beautiful, it's gorgeous, they like working with the natives there, etc. It's not as bad as people make it out to be. So, as you are going to the second half of the story, you could have it where the risk could be that their society could be destroyed if they failed, or maybe they are encroaching on the society because the big bad person is doing bad things and affects them. So you could have it where there's tension in that point, or the stakes is there. I'm not going to expect you to get that all in the first draft, but that is something you can build towards as you edit. So if you want that to happen, you got to really showcase, you know, the citizens in the beginning. And don't get too upset if you aren't able to do that in the first draft. So there you have it. That is tension and raising the stakes, where tension is resistance that the character deals with, either from within themselves, from other people, or from the environment that's around them. And raising the stakes is the showcasing of the consequences of failure and what could happen if things don't work out or they don't follow through what they're supposed to follow through. And next week we'll be using the character growth and character arc and how we can use that to kind of map ourselves through our story. The past videos have been very loosey-goosey, and I know those who are used to outlining and having a roadmap and trying this method for the first time, I know that this is kind of difficult, and this is kind of the same information you probably had heard of. But now we're getting to a little bit more a substantial information that you can use as you go towards your goal, which is completing the story. So I hope you like this video. If you do, go ahead and give this a like. Let me know what you think down below. What good examples do you like about tension and raising the stakes? How would you put this in your story? And go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I have several videos that you could browse through at your own leisure. And if for some reason things don't go through where I miss a day, like last week, I posted it on Friday instead of Thursday. Go ahead and use that bell. Use that bell so that way you get notified when I have a late video being put up. And I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.